Sherry mistakenly believed that I was completely unaware of her actions. Perhaps she thought I was naive or lacked the insight to notice, especially regarding her growing bond with her colleague Todd. She was utterly confident that I would passively tolerate her behavior and allow her to deceive me while she pursued her affair. What she didn't realize was that I had been harboring suspicions about her for a long time. I had noticed various changes in her behavior, unmistakable signs of infidelity. These included frequent lateness from work, a sudden and provocative wardrobe update, a newfound assertiveness, and a lack of intimacy. These signs did not escape my attention. Our shared hobbies were fading, and my interest in the things we once held dear was waning. Attempts to address this with Sherry proved futile, as my concerns were repeatedly dismissed. She claimed that any issues were rooted in my own insecurity and possessiveness. Left with no other choice, I decided to enlist the services of a private investigator. From the beginning of our relationship, I had made it clear that infidelity was something I would never tolerate. Over our 10-year marriage, Sherry had repeatedly assured me of her loyalty. So, sitting in the office of private investigator Jake Sloan and hearing his conclusions filled me with a mix of relief and dread. When Sloan confirmed that Sherry wasn't yet physically unfaithful, I felt a fleeting sense of relief, but it didn't last long. He cautiously explained that while their relationship hadn't turned physical, my wife was emotionally entangled with Todd. For me, this was just as devastating. Emotional infidelity was still betrayal in my eyes. The private investigator's report confirmed my worst fears. Sherry and Todd spent time together exclusively, day after day. They openly displayed affection, holding hands, sitting closely, and occasionally embracing. Sloan had provided numerous photos of them in tight embraces and, in some instances, even exchanging kisses. Rage consumed me as I stared at the evidence. Not only did they frequently share meals, but they also extended their work hours without legitimate reasons. It seemed they were deliberately avoiding returning to their respective spouses, monopolizing as much time together as possible. The detective went further, revealing that he had accessed Sherry's emails and messages. Although I knew this was illegal and unusable in divorce proceedings, I couldn't ignore the damning implications of what he found. In our state, proving adultery for divorce was a complex process, but a no-fault divorce required no such evidence. My intent wasn't legal retribution. I simply wanted the truth. Sloan refused to provide me with copies of the messages, or even let me view them directly. Instead, he summarized their contents. He assured me that my wife had never spoken ill of me. Even when Todd tried to belittle me, Sherry refused to indulge him, which I suppose was a small consolation. Their exchanges revealed a romantic connection, though neither explicitly expressed love. Their conversations were deeply personal, bordering on explicit. Todd even shared photos of his girlfriend with Sherry, which she seemed to appreciate. However, as far as Sloan could tell, Sherry hadn't reciprocated by sending any explicit photos of her own, at least not yet. As I sat in Sloan's office contemplating my next steps, he delivered the most devastating news yet. Todd's wife was planning to visit her mother's house in the country for 3 days. During this time, Todd and Sherry saw an opportunity to finally be together in an intimate setting. The only obstacle was my presence. They were unsure how to spend the night together while I was still in the picture. Knowing I had no intention of leaving the city, their challenge seemed insurmountable. Yet they were devising strategies to overcome this. One idea involved Sherry fabricating a story about going away for a girls' weekend. However, she hesitated, fearing that one of her friends might accidentally expose the lie. Reluctant to involve others, she abandoned this plan. Instead, they considered forcing me to leave the city. I bitterly recalled how Sherry had recently suggested organizing a golf trip with my friends, a proposal I declined due to my lack of interest. In the end, they settled on a different approach: honesty. Todd was convinced that over time, I would become a compliant husband willing to tolerate their affair in order to keep Sherry as my devoted spouse. He manipulated her into believing that their relationship would somehow improve our marriage, including our intimacy. Todd persuaded her that all she had to do was inform me of her intentions, and I would begrudgingly accept the situation. It was clear that Todd had no idea who I really was. Yet what shocked me most was that Sherry had succumbed to Todd's manipulative tactics. She should have known that I would never tolerate such behavior. If she didn't understand this, it only reinforced what Sloan had mentioned, that Sherry was mentally unstable. Reluctantly, I agreed with his assessment and headed home, asking him to continue monitoring Sherry's messages and to inform me of any updates. On Friday, Sloan contacted me to share that Sherry was planning to speak with me the following Monday after work. She intended to announce her decision to go on a date with Todd the preceding Friday night. Their plans were carefully laid out: dinner, dancing, and an overnight stay at a hotel, after which Sherry would prudently return to me by Saturday morning. Sherry and Todd rehearsed her entire speech meticulously, trying to convince themselves that I would comply with her request. They anticipated my initial reaction would be anger and frustration, but Sherry was determined to assure me that this would be an isolated incident, despite knowing full well that wasn't the case. To further manipulate me, she planned to present this betrayal as an opportunity for growth in our marriage. As a gesture of appreciation for my understanding, she even planned to offer intimacy afterward, assuming that after months of abstinence, I would be eager to accept such a pathetic consolation prize. The sheer audacity of their calculations disgusted me. Sherry and Todd smugly referred to this meeting as an intervention, convinced they had thought of everything. But I had only 48 hours to prepare for this so-called intervention, and I firmly decided that it would not unfold the way they envisioned. Over the weekend, I carefully worked through countless scenarios, trying to determine if there was any way to save our marriage. At the same time, I wrestled with whether I even wanted to fix it. Uncertainty clouded my mind as I reflected on my feelings for Sherry and the life we had built together. In the early years of our marriage, Sherry and I were consumed with joy. We shared everything: our passions, experiences, and dreams. She was not only my closest companion, but also my most passionate lover. But over time, all of that seemed to vanish into thin air. Perhaps it was the inevitable course of life, where permanence is a myth. Or perhaps my idea of marriage was too romanticized and traditional. I had always envisioned us as partners navigating life together, united in overcoming its challenges. Both of us had experienced failed marriages in the past, which made me question whether the problem lay within ourselves or with the institution of marriage itself.